Welcome to the NAELB Telephone Marketing with Professionalism program. This program is designed to help you become more professional with your telephone techniques. My name is Dave Allison, and on behalf of Steve Allison and Allison and Associates, we'd like to welcome you. Companies invest a lot of time and energy, money, in inviting and hoping that customers will contact them. But frequently they neglect paying any attention to how those calls are received when they arrive and how the customer's contact is continued in a professional way until they actually do become a part of your customer base. So we will be focusing on how to do those things and do them more effectively. During the program, you're going to experience what we call a series of ahas. And an aha is an idea that comes along, mind says, aha. Now, that's good. I could use that. But have you ever noticed what happens? About the time your mind says, aha, now that's good, I could use that, if you're not careful, your mind plays a trick on you. Your mind says, yes, but that's simple, and I'll remember that. Mind ever done that to you? Oh, yeah. Now, that's simple. I'll remember that. 5, 10, 15 minutes from now, you may have one or two to-dos or ahas, and you go to that part of the mind where you've been tucking this stuff, called the back of the mind, and you say, back of the mind, would you give them to me quickly? I know I put them in there. And what's the back of the mind say? They're already gone. Good ideas are a lot like slippery fish. They're very, very difficult to hold on to unless you gaff them with a pencil. And unless you make a decision right now to jot down some of the very simple things we're going to be talking about, you will not be allowed to participate in the human being's learning process. The human being's learning process described in one word: repetition, over and over and over again. So in order to capture these ahas, I would ask if you take a pen or a pencil and on your notepad draw a horizontal line about an inch or so from the top of the page. Just draw a horizontal line across the page. Then along the left-hand side, draw a vertical line about an inch or so in from the edge of the page. In the upper left-hand corner, write the words "to do." And as the ideas come along and the mind says, now that's good, I could do that, you put those ideas in the to-do column. Then in the upper right-hand rectangle, write the words "to review." And as other thoughts come along that are not necessarily things to do, but you want to go back and review them, you put those notes in the review side. Our purpose today is to provide you with a buffet of to-dos, things that you can do differently to be more effective. You didn't need to travel to this room this morning to discover that the marketplace is changing rapidly. Everybody knows that. The question is, are you changing fast enough to keep up with the marketplace? And if you can't think of one thing that you're doing at this moment to bring more value to the marketplace, you may not be working on anything. And that means you may be becoming obsolete in this rapidly changing marketplace. Let's get to work on some of the telephone techniques that will help you to be more professional. First, let's talk about handling the incoming call. And there's a couple of things to be aware of as you look at the incoming call, the single call. First, what's going on in the mind of the caller? And we would suggest that whenever the caller dials the number, they have at least two questions on their mind. One, did I dial the right number? Am I getting the party that I called? And two, who am I talking to? And maybe wrapped all around that is, how do I feel about your response to my call? You, on the other hand, have the problem of whether you're working with one call or whether you're working with multiple calls. And if you have a greeting that requires extra time, whenever you're very busy, you may tend to rush that greeting in order to get it out. You're a creature of habit. We do things by habit. And so you tend to rush the greeting, and that starts to communicate to the caller that they have interrupted you. So bringing all of that together, we would suggest that whenever you answer the phone, let them know that they have reached the party they dialed. XYZ Brokerage, XYZ Leasing, that's the name of the company. This is Dave. They know they got the right number. They know who they're talking to. Now, how did they know that you wanted to help them? That's all done with the tone of voice. Because if you rush a lot of words, they may be very good words. Good morning, XYZ Brokerage, this is Dave, how may I help you? It's a fairly long greeting, but if you say that rapidly, it doesn't come across as a friendly greeting. How do we handle multiple calls? Have you ever been in a situation where you were the only person available to be answering calls and now 2 or 3 lines are ringing at the same time? How do you handle that? Well, if you know that you are the only person available to answer the phone and it starts ringing, and you're not going to let it ring and ring and ring, immediately you say to the person that you're talking to, would you mind if I take just a moment and answer this call? Would you mind if I do that? We're asking them for permission to do it. In asking them for their permission, they feel in control and they can give you permission. They feel better about letting you take that other call. Now remember, we said, would you mind if I take just a moment and answer this call? So now you go to the other call. How do you answer it? XYZ Brokerage, this is Dave. Would you mind giving me your name and your number? I am on another call, and I'll call you back just as soon as I can. It's the best of a lot of poor options, because anytime you have a lot of calls coming in and the phone system allows you to be in that position, it's not perfect, but it's the best you can do to let people know that you care. You dare not leave people waiting for a phone to be answered that's ringing and ringing and ringing. It sends the wrong message to everybody. Let's talk about call screening. Have you ever made a phone call and when they answered the phone, you got the feeling that you were going to probably have to present a driver's license ID to get through? Have you ever been screened? Do you know what I'm talking about? Customer service and call screening are incompatible. It's very difficult to roll out the red carpet of customer service and at the same time be sending a message, tone of voice, who are you and what do you want? And then we'll decide whether we're going to talk to you or not. So we do not recommend call screening. Now, if it's important that you know who's calling or that the person that they're calling for, Bill Smith, wants to know, then a very professional way of finding out is to ask, would you like Bill Smith to know who's calling? And that gives them the option, and they can say, well, no, I really don't. Well, okay, then transfer the call. And if they give the name, then you can pass the name along. Holding. Have you ever been on hold? How long? Holding does bad things to your phone system. We do not suggest offering holding. Oftentimes, whenever somebody's not available, whoever's answered the phone will say, would you like to hold? Don't do that. Because whenever they accept the holding, now you have an obligation to get back within 15, no more than 20 seconds, and let them know that they haven't been forgotten. Well, If while that call is on hold, you get another call and it goes on hold, now you're trying to keep all these balls in the air. Who's on hold and who are they waiting for, and how long do I have before I get back and talk to them? It's not a professional way to handle calls. Now, on occasion, somebody will say, well, can I just hold? And they request holding. Response, well, I suppose you could, but Mary has been on the phone for about 10-15 minutes. Looks like it's going to be a while. If you'll give me your name and number, I'll have her call you as soon as she gets off the phone. And you do everything in your power to avoid putting somebody on hold. Transferring calls. If you're going to transfer a call to somebody else in the organization, then would you mind if I for that information, you need to talk to Sally. Would you mind if I transfer you to Sally? And then with their permission, you make sure that, one, you've transferred it and that the call has gone through. You can also suggest, if Sally isn't available, please ring me back and I'll see if I can find someone else to help you. Don't leave people just on a dead-end road on a call transfer. Wrong numbers. How do you respond professionally to a wrong number? And why should we even be concerned? Well, sometimes in our phone system today, numbers have been transferred or reassigned. There's a close proximity to your number, and you will get some frequent wrong number calls. And so instead of just saying, well, you've got the wrong number, a professional way is to say or ask, what number did you dial? And then you can point out to them how the number, your number that they have reached, differs from the number that they've called. It starts to minimize the number of wrong number calls you may get. Okay, there are some rules we need to follow in using the telephone. One, no food, no chewing gum, nothing on your desk, no items of consumption. It's picked up on the telephone, it's not professional. Two, no side conversations. Have you ever been on the telephone and this person's trying to talk to somebody else at the same time they're trying to talk to you? Don't do that. Had a call not too long ago. They picked up the receiver. I could hear them talking with somebody else for about a minute and a half before they even greeted me on the telephone. Very unprofessional. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. If you will learn how to see the customer as the person that you are and how you would like to be treated, and you start treating people that way, it will take you a long way in letting folks know how much you really care. Transferring to another person, we've talked about that, but make sure that the transfer is complete. Otherwise, folks get the feeling that you're just anxious to get rid of them and not really caring whether they've been taken care of or not. Multitasking, avoid it. The mind can really focus on only about one thing at a time. Now, sometimes you can do things fairly quickly, but about one thing at a time. And so if you're multitasking, whatever the other task is, it's very possible that you will miss something that's being said. You'll miss an inflection. You'll miss a point. And then you respond inappropriately and people think you don't care. So make sure that whenever you are on the phone, you are on the phone. In fact, there's a to-do for some of you. Wherever you are, be there. So if you're on the phone, be on the phone. The telephone call is an interruption. When the telephone rings, it is an interruption. And it's often difficult to turn on the smile-friendly greeting when you've been interrupted. A professional person is able to do that, to detach from what's happening at the moment and then be able to, XYZ brokerage, this is Dave, which says what? Wow, you called. Let's talk about some in-house telephone concerns. The telephone call, the ringing of the telephone, is always an interruption. I've never met anyone who said they sat around waiting for the phone to ring. And so when the call comes in, that's an interruption. And we must be able to stop immediately what we're doing and get into this friendly greeting mode that lets people know we're glad they called. We were waiting for you to call. It's called taking the curse off the call. And you can only do that by thinking of the caller rather than thinking of what you were doing at the moment the phone rang. Paging techniques. If you have a paging system, be careful. A lot of organizations do not. But paging, where it broadcasts over the system, has the ability to interrupt a lot of other people. It's a great device for finding the person they're calling if they're looking for Bill Smith, but it's a very disruptive technique or system for everybody else. So be careful if you're going to page that you have as friendly a voice when you're paging as you do when you're answering the telephone. Otherwise, it sounds as if you don't care. Returning calls. This calls for a personal commitment on your part. If someone calls and leaves a message, be courteous, be professional, return the call. There is no better way of letting folks know you do not care than to not return a phone call. Brevity. Be as brief as you can, not to the point of being curt, but certainly be brief on your phone calls. There's nothing worse than wasting folks' times by talking about extraneous and irrelevant things. Sports, the weather, grandkids, all those kinds of things. That is not appropriate conversation on a business call. And last, let's talk about mumbling and foreign accents. This is a bit of a sensitive issue, especially in today's marketplace. Best advice I can give you is don't let it tip you over. If you do not understand them, or you cannot hear them, or their accent defies understanding, just a brief interruption. Oh, I apologize. Start with an apology. I apologize. I'm having a difficult time hearing you or understanding you. Is it possible you could talk slower? Is it possible you could get someone else on the phone? Offer a suggestion for how to solve the problem. But the tendency is for us to get a little upset over some of these things that make it difficult to understand the call. Well, now would be a good time to have a role play. And so let's ask Steve to demonstrate how he would answer a call coming in to his organization.
XYZ Leasing, this is Steve.
Notice that Steve did not say good morning or good afternoon. It's not necessary. He didn't say, how may I help you? But his tone of voice was friendly. It said, I'm glad you called. On the telephone, about 80-85% of the message is in your tone of voice. Only 15 to 20% is in the words. So a couple of to-dos. One, keep your greeting very short. And two, speak in a friendly voice. The friendliness of the voice is far more powerful than any of the words. Now, let's see how Steve would handle transferring a call.
XYZ Leasing, this is Steve.
Jim Smith, please.
I'd be happy to transfer you. If Jim doesn't answer, you can leave him a voicemail message or transfer back to me.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Notice how Steve set the stage for the caller not making contact with the party they wanted to talk to. Oftentimes when we ask for Bill Smith or Mary Smith, and they say, well, let me transfer you, it implies that you're actually going to talk to that person. And oftentimes they don't even know whether they're going to be available. So what Steve did was offer an option. If they're not there, transfer back to me, and then I'll do whatever else I can to help you. So the key to do in transferring a call is let the caller know that if they get voicemail, they can come back. Prepare your caller for the voicemail. Now, let's see how Steve handles a call when he's actually going to send the person to voicemail. This would be a situation where you know the person isn't there, and so you're going to send them to voicemail.
XYZ Leasing, this is Steve.
Jim Smith, please.
Jim isn't available right now. Would you like to leave him a message, or can someone else help you?
I'd like to leave a message.
Would his voicemail be okay?
Voicemail would be fine.
Thanks. I'll transfer you now.
Notice that Steve didn't just automatically transfer the caller. He explained that the voicemail would be available and that person should feel free to leave the message. In this session, we have covered how to handle incoming calls professionally. In session 2, we're going to be talking about how to make a proactive customer service call so that you can maintain contact with folks after the initial contact until they become truly a customer. In session 3, we're going to be talking about how to make a proactive "how may I help you" call. Some folks call them a cold call, and this is really going to be the heart of your future business success. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having you back for session 2 and session 3.